where we saw how we can work with index. Now you're going to tell me about action result, right? That is one thing that I asked you. So can anyone, whoever wants to answer, can answer this? Give me any one derived class of action result.
So view result, action,
That we did. Any others?
partial view result means I have a list of content returning type. There is partial view result, file result, content result.
Okay,
Then
one at a time. Give me one at a time. So content result. What would content result do? What will that return?
content result will, in that you can particularly pass a tag if you want to display something on the web page directly.
Correct. So basically, a content result is if you want to just return a string, for example, and you don't return a view, but you return maybe an HTML string or any other output. That could be a content result. Any other this thing?
Other than that, there was file result also. You
Okay,
can
so if you want to
return
return an output of a file, then that file, if you want to return a file totally, then that could be a file result. Any other?
There is one thing called as empty result also.
Empty result is a blank result. There's
Blank
nothing, there's
result.
no result being returned. So
And
that typically would be used when you're using web API. So most of the times, if you're using a web API, you might want to return an empty result if no records found, that type of a thing.
yes, and there was in the content returning type, there was one partial view result.
Yeah. Partial view, we'll be trying out partial views. So leave that out. But yeah, any others?
Other than that, there was other category which was redirecting result, in which we used to pass a URL. So if we want to redirect to a new web page, we used to pass URL.
So that again, we're going to be seeing in the next snippet that we see, where you can redirect to some other page. So again, that could be a type of action result. Yeah.
And the third type was redirect to root result.
Correct. Okay. So these are the redirects out here. All right. So Abhi has found out quite a few. Hopefully, you all have been reading up on that, because, as I said, I will be taking up more as we come along. But it's always nice to have a good idea about what you're using before we actually go about using it. So I'll be taking up whatever comes up in our set of code that we work with. Whatever we require, we'll be taking that up. But if you want a complete exhaustive list, you please look up what are the different types of action results that might be returned from there. All right. Did anyone try and find out how to return different HTTP status codes? Has anyone tried that out or read up on that? We tried one of them, which was not found, which returned a 404. But anyone else has hit upon that?
Like unauthorized result 401.
Correct.
Or bad request result 400.
Correct. So you have different HTTP result status codes also that you can return. And there are a lot of HTTP status codes. So there'll be a lot of different types of results that you're actually returning from there. So look up all this, read up on all of this. This would help you later as well. As I said, we will be covering a lot of these through our code, but not all, the entire list may not be possible. All right. So let's take it forward from there. Any other queries or questions before we begin?
Also.
All right. So we added one controller, we added one view. Okay, we did that out here, and then there's an action method wherein we are actually working with that view. Now let's turn our attention to this routes that we were actually setting. Okay, and among the routes that we are setting, two of the things are fairly clear to us, which is controller and action. But now what about this third option out here, which says /ID? How do what do we correlate with that? Or what are the things that we need to do out there? So what this is used for is, if you're, for example, if if let's say this was your URL, let's say it was /default / index. So the first part here is the controller name. The second part here is, of course, the name
Action.
of the action method. Now, along with that, if you want to pass additional root data, right? See, this is called as a root. And the first two parts, of course, are fixed. That's controller and action. Now, anything else that you'd like to pass along with that can be passed out here using different root data. So, for example, let's say if I'm saying I want to pass some other value, 10. Now, this could be in a format of something like this. Let's say if I said /employees /display /10. So what do you think this should be now in this case? What am I trying to do out here? What am I trying to do out here? Can you figure out what this sort of thing means?
Display employee with employee number 10.
Correct. Or for example, let's say if I said edit 10, what will that do out here? That'll similarly do what? Show me allow me to edit employee number 10. Or for example, let's say delete 10. So typically in a lot of these URLs, one of the parameters is the ID out there. Okay. And which is why they have given you a default name of ID. The name can be anything. It could have been called X also. There's no big deal out there. But just the fact that you give it as ID, helps you identify it that, okay, this is generally the ID that you're passing out here. Are you clear on this? This is how, I could be specifying details out here. So this could be for some other controller also. Let's say, for example, products /display 10. So what will this display? Product with ID number 10. So this is the format that you're actually using out here. Now, how are we going to read this value, or what is going to happen here? The first one was fairly simple. That was the controller name. Second one was action. Now, the third one that you're giving here, anything after action, can be received in your controller as a parameter to the action. So, for example, here, what is the name of the variable that we're giving is, 1 second. Too many windows open. The name of the variable that we have given here is what is ID. Now, whatever value you pass to it would be first received as ID in the root. And then that ID, if you want to receive it in your controller, that becomes a parameter to the method. Okay. Now, while naming this method parameter, if you give the same name here, if you give this variable the same name as the name given here, then ASP.NET MVC automatically reads the value from the URL and passes it to your variable. I'll repeat. If the name of the variable that you use in here matches, this is called as root data. Why root data? This is the root that we're defining. And ahead of controller action, whatever else that you're giving here would be the parameters to that root, would be the variables to that root. So if your root data and if your name of the control ID out here, name of the variable out here, if they match, then ASP.NET MVC automatically brings in the value and puts it in here. You don't need to do anything to do that. And this feature is called as binding. So what is binding? Values of variables automatically being assigned based on values in your root data here, for example. Are you clear on this concept?
Yes, sir.
All right.
So can you repeat the definition once again?
I'm saying the name of your variable that you're using here, the name of the variable needs to match with your root data. Root data is what? This is your root. So this is the data in the root. And
Variable
if-
name should match the root data.
Correct. And if they match, then binding ensures that the value from here, from your root data, is automatically assigned to your variable. Binding is being done for you by ASP.NET MVC. All that it asks you to do to enable binding is to ensure what? All that it's asking you to do. What is your responsibility?
To keep the variable name same as that of root data.
Correct. And if you do that, then the rest of things happen on its own. So for example, if I had called it X, then it would not be able to receive the value from this variable. If I had called this X and if I had called this X, then it would get the value. All right. And this name of ID is not sacrosanct. You can give it any name. It doesn't have to be ID only. It can be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, H, I, whatever. Whatever variable name that you want to give. But why do they refer to it as ID? Because in a lot of cases that you're working, this actually is the ID that you're receiving here. I give you examples of how your URLs could be found. So that's all that I've done. Root data name, variable name being the same. Let me put a breakpoint here and show you what happens. So when I run it for the first time, I'm not passing anything. You agree? When you run it, I have not given the controller name. I have not given the, what's the other thing? Second one is after controller name, action method name. I have not given any other parameter. So when I run this now, the value in here at this point is, see what it comes up as. Let it come up with, it's waiting for the breakpoint. It's taking a lot longer to run. I don't know why. I think there's a problem with my Zoom client, because every time I run this session, it's slowing down my other work. Okay, anyway, it's come back here. So see the value in X now in this case, right? Oh, I have changed it to X. I should have kept it as what? The names I have kept there also as ID. I need to make sure the name matches. So I've kept it as ID here and I need to have it as ID here. So initially when you run this, there's nothing being passed out here. The first time that you ran this, there's nothing in the URL. It's taking the default options out there, right? See this. I'm not given anything in here. So at this point, what is the value in ID? In this case is 0. Okay. Let me run this. Now, if I did this slash default slash index slash some ID, if I pass the 100 out here to this, then what I'm trying to tell you is this value from the URL is first going to the root data. And from the root data, it is automatically putting the value here into your variable because why is it putting it due to binding? And because how is binding working? What did we need to do to make binding work? Just ensure the same name. So now what value did it get here is in 100. Similarly, if you change the value here, for example, 200, what value would it get out here? Would be a 200.
200.
Okay. What if you didn't pass the value? What value does it take in that case?
Null.
No.
Zero.
It cannot take
Default
null.
value 0.
It cannot take null. For integer, the default value would be 0. Right? Let me run this. Okay, what if I pass the 0? What
0.
value will it take? Here
0.
also it will take a 0. So now what I want to do is I want to write code which says that has he received a value or not? Have I received a value or not? Now the problem is I'm getting a 0 in two situations. Even when I don't pass a value, it receives a 0, and even when it receives a 0, it gets a 0. So how do I distinguish between the two? Now to distinguish between the two, somebody suggested null. So make this a nullable type. So int question mark now is a nullable type. So if it is not pass, it will now contain. If it is
Zero.
not pass,
Null.
Null.
because now it is a nullable type. It will contain null. And if it is past the 0, then it will get the value of 0. So let's see this. Right. So if it is not pass, currently ID is null. And if I do pass the value, so let's say slash default slash index slash 100, it gets the value of 100. At the same time, if I pass a 0 to this, if I pass it a 0, now it's able to distinguish between this. This is 0. Are we clear on this, everybody? Now I could write code like this if I want to. For example, if ID equal to null. Okay, what if I want to ensure that it must be passed? I could do a return not found. Else return a view. Right? So I could even write code like this. And let's try running this now. So initially when I run this, there is no ID on this. So it will give you a 404. And if I did pass it a value slash default slash index slash 100, then it would take up the value that we have out here. Are we clear on this, everybody? So this
Yes,
could
sir.
help you do that. Any questions, any doubts about any of this? Okay, now I'm not going to do a null out here. I'm just going to return the view, right? Okay. Now, can I pass more values there if I want to? Yes, you can. So you can define more roots also. Like in this case, if I'd taken this as this, what are the possible roots out here? One possible route is taking only the ID. Second one, I am passing another route out here. What is this taking? What is this taking?
String.
Variable called X. Give the name a default, a different root name. Name doesn't matter, any name you can call it. So how will this work now? This will work in two ways. I can optionally pass, index if I want to. And the second possibility is I can also pass it an additional value of X. So I'll have to now do what? Receive this again as what? Int X. I'm going to keep this as nullable. So I will know whether I'm getting a 0 or a null or not passed or whatever the case may be. So if I run this now, let me run this code. Will it work if I don't pass X?
Uh,
Will it work if I don't pass X? Yes.
it will
Yes.
take it as null value.
Yeah. Now, which of the roots is allowing me that? Where I don't pass X? Which of the roots is allowing me that? Which
Default.
of the pattern?
Default.
Default.
Yeah, correct.
Default.
Line number 27. So it says here that even if you don't pass X, it's okay. What is this one saying? This one is saying what?
You'll have to
You have to
pass
pass X. You have to pass X. So there you could define multiple roots out here. Okay. And here in this case, it works because one of the roots says that even if you don't pass it, it's okay. Right? So this works. But what if I had not given this? What if I had not given this? And now what am I saying? What am I saying here? That ID could be null. But X must be passed. First thing is if I try running this, right? I'm not passing X. Yeah, I'm not passing X. So here in this case, sorry, you were saying something I couldn't hear.
So it gives an error.
Yeah, okay, great. So here in this case, the 404. Why is it giving a 404? Because my URL is not matching any of the valid routes. The route says what? Controller default is okay, action default is okay, ID null is okay, but X must be given. So for this to work, what do I need to do? I need to mark this as it
Nullable.
can take a
Null.
null value here. And now would it work if I don't pass the value?
Yes.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So now it would work with values. If I don't pass anything, ID will take a value of null, X takes a value of null. Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir.
So you can either force him to pass a value. Supposing I did this, that means what is required here now?
ID
Supposing
is
I did
required.
this. ID is required and X
Can be null.
X what need not be passed. So if I did this now again, if I don't pass anything in ID, again, what is it giving me? 404. Doesn't match any of the roots out there. So this question mark is significant out here. Because if you don't give it, it means you're forcing him to give what? You're forcing him to give that root. Clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So now tell me whether what would happen now here. Okay, think and tell me. Okay, another root I define. And here I'm only giving X. Okay, I'm only giving X. So if I pass one parameter, firstly, is it a valid route? If I pass only one after action, if I pass one parameter, would that be okay? Is it a valid route? Is one of the routes accepting it? No, is one of the routes accepting it? Any one of the routes, is it accepting it?
Any one of the root, yes. So default
Yes.
to bullets.
But now this one says that the first parameter is ID. And the second, this one says what? The first parameter is
String.
X.
String.
X here.
X.
I'm not saying string, I'm saying X. So now my question is, if I don't pass it anything, or if I pass it one value, let's take that situation. So if I don't pass anything, both are null. So that's okay, because there's a route which allows that, right? There's a route which allows that. But if I pass /default /index /100, now what will it be passed into? Will it be taken as ID or will it be taken as X? Because now I've got both of them. I've got this one saying that the first parameter is the ID, this one saying it's X. So the first parameter, where will it be received? Will it be ID or X?
So ID,
Why ID?
because it is the first parameter given in the
That
index.
is not the answer. That is not the answer. The order of the thing doesn't matter. What matters is the name.
Hmm.
Binding is doing it with what? With name. Names must match. Order doesn't matter.
Hmm.
So why? You're correct. The answer is going to be ID. X will be null here. ID is being taken here. So why is that? The sequence matters. Which one did we give first?
ID.
ID. So what happened now? The first one that was taken up was
It chose the
ID.
first root itself.
Are you clear on this? Supposing I had given this as X and given this as ID, then the value would go into
X.
X rather than ID. If I reverse it, for example. Right? And let's try running this now. So when I run this initially, of course, okay, both are null initially. Both are null. And if I did a /default /index /100, you'll find that the X value now here is taking the 100. But ID is taking it as null. So the order didn't matter. It is not that the first parameter, that's why this thing. What mattered was the sequence of how you added the root. It's doing it top to bottom. It's actually doing like an if else. Is the URL that I've given, can it be matched here? If yes, then don't look further. If not, then look in the next pattern. Is it working here also? Yes, then match it here. If not, look in the next pattern. If it doesn't give any of the patterns don't match, then what will happen? If none of the patterns match, then what? Straight away?
page not found.
404. Saying that, sorry, you're not given it in the right pattern. So you can define multiple patterns, but if it is picked up by one of the earlier ones, the later ones don't come to play. Okay, so I'm commenting out these others. I don't need so many other things. But this is what I have. Okay, now tell me one thing. So this is the ID itself, and I'll keep this as X. Tell me one thing. Supposing I had something like this: ID, comma, let's say A slash B, right, and C. So now, how do I pass only C? Supposing this is the only root defined. Can I pass only C?
So we can give empty slashes, means
No,
no
it doesn't take
value in
empty.
between.
No, it doesn't take empty slashes. That will be a problem with the URL. The URL will not take in that. So can I pass directly a value for C without passing ID or A or B? You think it will work?
Using name in URL,
No,
like C equals to.
yeah, but right now will it work?
Oh.
Right now will it work? Yes, no. Can I
No,
pass
no.
the fourth parameter
No,
without passing the first three? Somebody suggests empty slashes. That doesn't work. So you cannot do this. So to pass C, what am I forced to do now? I'm forced to pass, the first three and then pass C. But what if I wanted some flexibility in this approach? What if I wanted some flexibility? Whereas I'm saying I can pass ID and then I can pass any combination of A, B, and C. What if I want to pass only C, only B, A and C, B and C? What if I wanted those sort of permutations? Now, in such cases, instead of using root data, you can think of doing this with a query string. So this is the first example that we tried here with. This is using a root data. And instead of using root data, okay, I'm commenting on this one. I'm purposely using different variable here. This X and this thing also the root data. Now I can actually use multiple parameters here. And these multiple parameters can also be read from the query string. Okay. So how do I give the query string now? Let's try this. So if you just to recap, I have not defined any of those other parameters. Okay. So when I run this for the first time, of course, ID and everything is null. Everything is null out here. Right. But what I can do is I can say, slash default slash, sorry, I think I pressed enter by mistake. Slash default slash index slash 100 question mark, and I can pass whatever query strings I want to. So A is equal to 10 and B is equal to 20 and C is equal to 30. So what is this now here? After the question mark, what is this now? Is this the, yes? What are we using here? Do you all know what is the query string? Yes, no. Am I connected?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So do you all know what is the query string? Is my question to you.
No.
No, sir.
You don't know a query string?
So we have learned params, sir. Or we can pass the data using URL.
So that is called a query string. This is called as a query string. What you give after the question mark is your query string.
Okay, sir.
All right, that's called as a query string. It's known as a query string out here. Whatever, the request object has a property called query string, which tells you all the details about the query string. So whatever you give after the question mark, have you used the question mark and past values or no?
Yes, sir. Hit a form, it generates a query string.
Correct, correct. That's exactly what I'm talking about. In HTML, whatever the URL, after that the question mark in this. If you did a get, for example, on something, then the values are passed in your query string. So maybe you have used it, but you're not calling it a query string. That's all that this is. But this is effectively a query string. So what happens in the query string? You say question mark. After the URL, you say question mark, and then variable equal to value. Then ampersand variable equal to value. Right? So if I did this, for example, I'll just show you. Suppose I go to Google and I said hello, for example. Right? So you see this search, this is your query string up to here, up to search. Sorry, is your URL. And after this, there is a question mark and there's a query string. So question equal to hello. Supposing I, instead of said hello, I said world. So what has happened now? Is doing a search on world. So this here is your query string. Are we clear on this? This whole thing is your query string. Anyway, coming back to this. So if I press enter here, now what is the value that we have here? We are passing the values not in the root data, but we are passing it in the query string. And you'll find that ID is coming from where? Where is this coming in from?
Root
ID
data.
coming from root data. But the other values, A, coming in from where?
Query
The
string.
query string.
Similarly, B. And similarly, C. So these are the values that are coming in from here. Okay. Supposing I decide not to pass A. I decide not to pass A. And I only pass what? B and C. What will happen now?
A
How
would
will
be
it work?
null.
A would be null, but B and C would have values. So if you look at this now, ID of course is 100, A is null, and B and C have values out here. Okay. So you can give any combinations here. Now, of course, you can, if I want to only pass C, for example, right? Any combinations, only C being passed. Here again, what A and B are null, but C is having a value out here. Clear on this, everybody?
Yes,
So
sir.
how is how are we passing the values here in this case? Using a query string. How is query string better than or more flexible? I won't say better. How is it more flexible than root data? What is the difference in query string and root data? How is it more flexible?
Because you are using variable names, so there is no chance of ambiguity in case of query string.
No, that is not the answer. The correct answer is
We
you
can
can
pass
have
multiple
option.
datas.
any combinations of data. So I started off my discussion by saying, what if I want to pass the fourth parameter? In a root data, that will not be possible. No? Unless you pass the first three, you can't pass the fourth one in root data. But in query string, where you can pass anything, I could have passed what? What could be my query string for passing only C? How would this work? Only C, what will I do?
A equals to 10 and B 20 will be
Only C. So here in this case, A and B will be what? Will be null.
null.
So any combinations can be passed out here using what?
Query
Query
string.
string. Okay. Now binding also happens with query string data. Meaning what? The values of these variables are being picked up from your query string directly. What is the only prerequisite? What does ASP.NET say to you? I will do the rest. What do you only need to ensure?
The values must be
the
nullable
variable.
type.
Ensure the same name. They're saying you take care of the name, I will take care of everything else for you. I will read the value from either the root data or from the query string data, and I will put into your variables. Are we clear? So this is called as binding. A little later, we are going to use model binding. Model binding goes one step further. Model binding will say that if you have a model, if you have a class, then the property of the class will automatically get the value from either the root data or from the query string data or from form data, request.form data, automatically, without you having to do anything. You only ensure what? That the property name and that variable name that you're using out there, the the query string data or the root data or the form data, the names match. That's all that they're asking you to do. So we'll see model binding later. I'm not yet introduced models. So this is binding. When you say binding, binding is without models. When we say model binding, is if you're using a model and if you're doing binding there, that is called model binding. And binding and model binding are the most, I would say, the most easiest way of getting the data for you. You don't have to struggle to get the data. The data is being passed to you directly, if your name is the same. Clear on this so far?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now I want to go one step further. What I want to do is that the values that I'm receiving in my controller, I want to pass it to my view. Values from the controller being passed to the view. To do that, you have an object available here called as the view bag. Now the view bag is an object which is of type, it's something called as an expando object. And this expando object is used in dynamic coding. So it's a part of dynamic coding, which we have not covered in C#. I have not shown you how to use dynamic coding. I have not done that. Okay. So what happens in dynamic coding? In dynamic coding, you can create properties at runtime. Dynamically create properties at runtime. Now, internally, these properties that you're creating at runtime, internally, these would be stored as a key value pair internally. We don't need to worry about that. That is internal workings of how dynamic works. We're not going to get into that. But this view bag is a dynamic object. So see what happens when I say view bag dot. Does it show me any, any IntelliSense out here? View bag dot.
No, sir.
Why is this? This is because all the properties of this view bag are going to be added at runtime. So view bag dot, and I'm going to specify dot ID equal to ID. Any name. I mean, this is just the name that you're giving. It doesn't have to be ID. It can be any X, Y, Z, any name. Because this is going to create a property at runtime. What will be the data type of this ID? What will be the data type of this ID?
Integer.
Why integer? Correct answer. Why integer?
Same data type is considered in the index.
On the right hand side. But it is, you're actually half complete. It will not be just integer, it will be int question mark. So it will be a nullable int. Because on the right hand side, you have a nullable int. So whatever data type you have on the right hand side will take up, the left hand side will take up the same data type. And just like this, just like ID, I'm going to pass other values here. So viewbag dot A is equal to the variable A, and viewbag dot B equal to B, and viewbag dot C is equal to C. So what are we doing here in this case? We are firstly, where is the controller getting the values from? Getting the values from where?
The request.
From the request. And what part of the request? Correct answer. What part of the request?
Query string and root data.
From two parts. From the URL. The whole thing is from the URL. The one part of the URL is your root data, and the other part of the URL is your query string. So up to here is your root data. And up to here is what? I mean, the part ahead of the question mark is your query string. So values have first come into the controller from the URL using either root data or using query string. And how do the values automatically come there? Using the concept of binding. Now, once the values are in here, I'm going to pass these values to my view. And one way of passing it from controller to view, there are many ways of passing it. So one way of passing it is using a view bag. So let's go to the view itself. And let me go into the view. And I want to show the values in here. So I'm going to show ID is equal to, and to get the viewbag.id. Now viewbag is actually an object that's available in the server side code. So you're going to have to write Razor code to read the value. The C# code to read the value. So and I'm directly giving viewbag.id, not I, but rather ID. ID is equal to viewbag.id. Right. Similarly, I'm going to do the others as well. What do I get when I type out viewbag dot? What will I get when I type viewbag dot? Yes. What properties would it show up?
All the variables that we have added there.
No, nothing.
No.
Nothing. Why nothing? Due to the dynamic object that you're using. So you will not get any IntelliSense here. Don't look for any IntelliSense. So there is a possibility. What if I make a mistake? Let's say instead of calling it C, I call it D. Now what will the problem?
It won't be able to recognize the value and throw an error.
So this will give you a null value. So viewbag.d will be null in this case. That means it has not been set on the server side. So before reading it, ideally you would want to check for what, whether it is null or not. And if it is null, then do some code. If it is not null, do some other code. You could write code that way. I'm not writing that. I'm writing it directly out here. Okay, so this would be the values that I would get. So let me run this now without any breakpoints. So when I first run this, right? Initially, all values are blank. Initially, all values are blank. Okay. Let's run this. Right. But if I pass in all the values, then it would be able to pick up the code out. And of course, if we change the values here, the values would be changed accordingly. So from the request, from the URL, values are being sent to your controller using binding. And then from binding, from the controller to the view using viewbag in this example. Questions, if any? Yes. Are we clear on this, everything?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If this view bag is an object that is stored on the server side, so if there's a new variable that we add in that view, why don't it give error? It give null value.
Say that again. If we access .e, you said, which is not there.
Yes, sir.
It will give you null. It will just say that object is not there. It won't give you an error. It will try to print null. Null will mean want to not print anything at all. Suppose you said console.writeLine and that string has a null value.
Yes, sir.
So what does it do for you? This doesn't give you any output now.
Yes, sir.
Same way, similar way.
Okay, so we are not actually adding properties in this like A, B, C. Just we are passing. Yes. We are. Okay.
This is the property that I'm adding.
This viewback is actually a dynamic property, and it takes values from the URL or the request that we pass, right?
No. It doesn't take it from the URL. We are specifying what to do. We are writing code in our controller to put a value into the viewbag. It is not, this is my code, no? It is not automatically taking it from here to here. Is it automatically taking it from here to here?
No, it will go via controller.
So this I'm writing code to put it. The developer, I'm writing code to put into view bag so that I can now receive it on the view.
Understood, sir.
So in general, if we write like an object and a variable that doesn't exist in that object in that class, it gives error. Why don't it is giving that error here?
Because it's just returning null. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to print the value of that. I'm trying to print the value here.
Yes, sir.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just printing the value. It's just going into HTML. So if this is null, this will be received, replaced by this. It's null, correct or no?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah, if you're trying to assign it to something, then it might cause you a problem, depending on what type of object it is. Supposing I tried to say that int x is equal to viewback.y and there is no viewback.y. Now int x cannot store nulls, then it will give you an error. But here I'm not doing stored into another variable. Here what am I doing? What is this line doing? Line number 10, 11, 12, 13. It is just printing it. It's just converting into HTML. It says pick up the value from viewback dot whatever and show the value. So supposing it was null, it says okay, there's nothing in there. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So now what I want to do next is, so see here I have sort of now started writing a little bit of Razor code. What I want to do next is I want to show you how this Razor code and this HTML code can be mixed together. How you can have a page wherein there is some Razor code, some HTML code. What if there is Razor code to be added within HTML code? What if there is HTML code to be added within Razor code? Combinations of this. I'm just going to play around with that a little bit. Okay. All right. Okay. So have a look at the code snippet that I have. Okay. So what I'm trying to do in this code is just show you a few permutations, combinations that are happening. Can you look at lines 15 to 20? 15 to 20 and explain to me what I'm doing on each line. Let's start with line number 16. What am I doing here?
So passing a string variable as ABC.
I'm creating a string variable whose value is ABC. So this is C# code, okay? Whatever C# code you know, you can write here. What about this one? Similarly,
Declaring an integer I.
initializing a variable, declaring int variable having the value of 100.
100.
Next line. Next line.
You're taking value of viewback dot a
And storing into I. So the earlier person was asking this question. What if it was null? Now on this line, if it was null, will it give you an error? If it was null, will it give you an error in that case?
No, sir.
Yes.
Null value will be assigned to it. To us.
No, it will give error.
No, it will.
Okay. So let's see this. Int C is equal to viewback.c. So picking up the value from here. Right? Okay. Now the next snippet, what I'm trying to show you here is that if I declare a variable in this code block, if I declare a code variable in this code block, it is also available after that code block is over. That is what I'm trying to show you. So I purposely ended the code block here. I could have actually done what? I could have written all this in the same code block. But I'm just trying to show you, what if you've declared it in a different code block? It does not mean that the variable is not accessible. It is still accessible. Whatever variables that you create at the beginning of the page or whatever are available throughout the page, wherever you are working with it. So tell me what I'm doing on this line.
Checking if the integer is even or odd.
And assigning it to a string.
String
That
S.
string S is initially having ABC, and now it's going to contain what? Even or odd.
Odd.
So this is just like you write normal C# code. All right. Achha, what are line numbers 27 to 30? What are they doing? 27, 28, 27 and 29. What are they doing? Variable declared here is being displayed here. Variable declared here, this variable is being displayed here with whatever current value it has. Okay. So far, so good.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can we look at line numbers 31 to 40? And what am I trying to show you here? Between 31 to 40, I have introduced something different. What am I trying to show you here? Firstly, 31 to 40, there's an @ curly bracket. This is the razor code block. So what do you think I'm trying to show you here?
So along with the calculation, you're trying to print or display the result.
Right. So what I'm doing here is inside a razor code block, I'm showing some HTML. In the earlier example, what did I do? Inside some HTML, I'm displaying a razor variable. Now here I'm doing the reverse. Inside a razor code block, I'm displaying the HTML. Now to display that HTML inside that razor code block, I'm giving what? @:. So @ allows you to put HTML or display HTML inside the razor code block without having to close the razor code block over it. Are we clear on this, everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right. What would have happened if I had not given this and I had just written result is equal to even directly? What do you think it's trying to do on line 34? What is it trying to do on line 34?
Will still be a razor code, sir. It won't get displayed.
So it is not able to read the HTML element.
Yeah. So this line, since I have not said colon, I mean @ colon, it thinks it is razor code. It thinks it is razor code. And what it's trying to do, it's trying to store a variable called even into a variable called result. So it thinks result is a variable. And right hand side even is also a variable. It's trying to do. Now it can't make any sense of that BR. But that's what it's trying to do on this line. And which is why it's showing an error. Saying what? That I cannot, the name result does not exist in the current context. So this is a C# error. Are we getting this, everybody? See, if I remove this, it's trying to do what? If I had a variable called result and if I had a variable called even, assuming I had given a semicolon, if I had a variable called result and even, it would have then worked. But this is not working out here. Are we clear? So which is what I need to do to get this to work. I hope you all are understanding what I'm trying to show you in this little one line code snippet.
Yes, sir.
Right.
So then what would be the output of that @ result? Will it directly show
It's
even?
HTML. It's printing HTML.
Okay, sir. It will just print even.
But it will not print both the lines. Huh? It will not print both the lines. It will either print this or print this based on the condition that you have. Okay. Understood.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. In the next code, yeah.
So what is the difference between the line 29 and 34? Means there also
29 and
34 means
no, I'm just showing you that between HTML code, I'm showing a razor variable, and here between razor code, I'm showing a HTML variable.
okay.
I want you to know both ways of doing it.
Okay. So in razor code, if I want to display HTML, I'll have to give @ and colon.
Correct.
here
And
only at the rate.
otherwise, other way around, you have to just give at the rate.
Okay, okay. That's what the question. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now look at the next snippet again. And here again, I have got a for loop, right? So this is a C# code that I'm writing. In the middle of C# code, I have now started writing HTML code. But I have not given at the rate colon. I have not given at the rate colon. In the middle of C# code, in the middle of your Razor code, I've started writing what? HTML. But I'm not giving at the rate colon. So what is so special about this that it didn't require an at the rate colon?
A starting and an ending tag.
Correct. So basically it's an HTML tag. So Razor code will recognize the HTML tag and says, okay, this guy is trying to put in a tag out there. So he doesn't need to put in a at the rate colon. Are we clear on this? So you don't need to do that because why? Of the tag. But here I'm forced to do that because of why? Because I'm not using a HTML tag out here in that case. Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is this code itself doing? Can you explain to me from line numbers 41 to 55? What do you think this code is generating for me?
Table.
Generating table.
Generating a table with how many rows?
5 rows.
Four actually. It says
4
less
rows.
than
4
five.
rows.
Yeah.
4 rows.
So yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Right? So what am I doing here? I'm running the loop 4 times. I from 1 to less than 5. If you want to if you want to get the correct answer, I will change my code. So less than equal to 5, this would run it 5 times. So what is this code actually doing if I did less than 5? I'm saying for every iteration, create a new TR. And inside that thing, again, what am I doing? I want to display @J. What is @J going to give me? See here again, I'm in the middle of HTML. So in the middle of HTML, what am I again putting in?
Razor code.
Razor code. So @J, what will that give me?
The value of variable J.
Index
The value of the variable J. So in this case, initially it will be 5 into, this would be initially 1 equal to, and this would give me what? @J into 5. That's 5 into 1 is equal to 5. The next iteration will be 5 into 2 equal to 10. And so on and so forth. 5 into 3 equal to 15 and 5 into 4 equal to 20. That's what it's printing out. So you'd be using this sort of a technique with a for each loop. Like I'll tell you what, supposing the for each loop contains employee details. So write a for each loop will go through, loops through all the employees and generates a new row out there which will keep showing you all the employees one after the other in a tabular format. So this is how you are dynamically going to generate the code. Your combination of HTML and Razor code will give you this. Earlier in the day, I told you, okay, what if there's a Google, Gmail inbox I go to? It shows me all my mails. What are they doing? They're also writing code like this only. They're writing a for each loop for all the mails. Keep showing one by one output here. So they're generating code like this. Are we clear on this? Have you had a session on PHP?
No, sir. PHP is not the part of our portion.
Oh, okay. Because earlier batches used to have PHP. So there it's similar. I mean, concept is the same, but right. So that's what we did. Where is this code going to run? This is going to run on the server side. The @ code everywhere is going to run on the server side. So the server side will run code to generate HTML and throw back the result. That's what we're doing out here. Questions of any, please? So let's try running this index. So why did this give an error? I is equal to viewback dot A. Why did this give an error?
Because viewback.a will return null and I is only declared with int type.
Correct. Why will viewback dot A return null? Next question.
Because in URL we don't have pass, in query string we don't pass value of a.
Correct. Are we clear on this? Sir? So who was, were you only, is that Trunal?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So were you only asking the question earlier or was there someone else who was asking?
I think someone else.
Okay.
It was Bagel, sir. Abhishek Bagel.
So do you, whoever, I don't remember who, name of the person who was asking it, but whoever was asking the question earlier, have you understood what has happened here?
Yes, sir.
You are asking you, what if it is null? Why is it not working? Why should it work there with when you're trying to print it? But here, when you're trying to read the value, it's going to cause you a problem.
Hmm.
So how do you get rid of this problem? One possibility, you convert I to, you make I as what? As nullable. You could have made I as null. I've purposely not done that, but you could have made I as nullable. So then it would have taken a value of viewback.a. Other possibilities, all the code that we wrote earlier. Remember all of this? Right? Remember this? What is this saying? What is this saying?
If value is not passed, it will take value 0.
So if viewback.a is null, then return 0, otherwise whatever. So you can write code. I'm not writing code. I want you to get the error. I want you to see what is happening out there. But now all the C# concepts that you learned before, same things are applicable here. Nothing new. Okay. Now, can I avoid that error by giving in default values? Can I avoid that error by giving in default values? What will happen now? If nothing is passed, then what will happen now? What will be the value taken up out here as?
0.
As 0. And then I need not, no, it will never be null, no? Yes or no? Right? Because it will now take a default value of 0. So I can do this also. So if I want to ensure that the values must have some values, you do this if you want to. Yes or no?
Yes.
So this is what we had earlier. This is what we got earlier. And if you want, you can make it avoid the exception, you can make it equal to 0. It depends on what your situation of the code is going to be. I want to try it out both ways. So you get the exception, you see what is happening, and then you can figure it out. So now it won't give me an error. Now it won't give me an error. So if nothing is passed, what are the values in there? It takes it as 0. But if I did pass a value, I think I have that. If I did pass a value, then it will take up those values and then pick up the value. Are you clear on this?
Yes.
So that S is equal to even and result is equal to even. Both of them give you the same output. Okay. And this was your HTML table that was generated. Now, the best way of knowing what is happening is always to look at the view page source. So for the next few days, your view page source should be your best friend. And this is how the table got generated. Right? This is how the table got generated. And then the other code that we had out. Questions, if any? No queries?
No, sir.
Okay. So we have had I'm not giving you time to try this out now. You will try this out later. My suggestion to you is this part. Don't try it out. We don't have a session tomorrow. You have your exams tomorrow. So don't necessarily waste a lot of time on ASP.NET MVC. From the exam perspective, I'm not going to ask you any, anything in the lab exam 100% from here, from these concepts. 100%, I'm not going to ask you this. I might ask you this in the MCQ exam, right? Based on whatever you've done today. But from a trying perspective, you can try it out later. We have tried a little bit of how to add a controller, how to look at the views, look at data that is being passed from the controller to the view, binding happening, so on and so forth. The next section I'm going to take up is a model. So we've not talked about a model at all so far. So we're going to try out a model out here. Okay. And the good news is you already done all that code. You already done that code. When did you do that? When did you create a class?
First session.
First, second day, whatever. When you created the employee class. So that employee class assignment of yours, whatever, when you created, we're going to do something similar out here. But I'm also going to have database access. So which is something that we've done yesterday. So that would be the fresh part out here. I mean, if you've not tried out that code, then that would be a little difficult to, not difficult, but if you've not tried it, then you don't know it. That's the only thing. So I'm going to do that, but we'll take a quick break and then we'll start off again. So it's about 5 to 6, 6 o'clock we'll start again. 5-minute break. When we come back, we look at models. All right, so we're back. Let's continue from what we last did. I will be sharing this code with you, so you can try out these examples. But I'm going to go in for a new project, right? And I'll suggest you also do that. You can actually code a little bit with me. Few of the things you can code with me. Just to get started, you can code this thing, and later we can sort of skip that section where I'm coding a little fast. But can we go in for a new project? Everybody? Same type of project, ASP.NET. Have I shared my screen? Yeah, okay. ASP.NET Core Web App MVC, all right? Same type of project. And okay, I'm going to call this as model binding. Project name is model binding. Next, again, the same settings as before. Do not configure for HTTPS. Do not use top level statements. Both of these options, first one not selected, second one selected. All right. Now, the first thing that we're going to do out here different is we're going to start off with adding a model. The model actually is a class that you're creating, which contains data plus methods that work on that data. So go to the models folder and let's add a new model. So add a class. You're doing this with me, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So right click and add a class. And we're going to create the same employee class that we have been working with all along. Okay. All right. Now, to save on time, I have got the same properties that I've been working with all along. And if you want my class, I can share it with you too. Just to save on time, you can use the same class that we've been working with. Okay, I'll put that in the chat. Okay. Same errors as before. You know how to get rid of these errors. What do we do? Either you give a string question mark or
Right click on project.
Properties and go
Properties.
and disable that what?
Nullable.
Either
Nullable.
way. Yeah, either way. Whatever way you want to work on it, I'm okay with it. I will just disable that one. Now, after you have added a model, it is very important to do the next step, which is to build your project. Any change that you make in your model, please build your solution after that. So that whatever changes that you made are now sort of saved and compiled and whatever. If it is giving any errors, you need to first remove the compilation errors before you try out any other step. All right. So make a note of it, make a mental note or make a physical note, whatever. All right. Otherwise, it will keep giving you errors that you don't remember. Okay, why it's not coming, why it's not giving me the correct values. So any change in your model, please build your project. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is add a controller. So right now, I'm not writing any other methods out here. We're keeping it as it is, just as data in there. So add a controller, right? Let's add a controller. But this time, we won't go in for an empty controller. We'll go in for a controller with read-write actions. Go in for a controller with read-write actions. Now, when you go in for a controller with read-write actions, see what it does. And on the right-hand side, an MVC controller with actions to create, read, update, delete, and list entities. So your basic CRUD operations. It generates the code for you for generating all of this. Are we clear on this, everybody? So that's the one that we're using. And add. Name of the controller. Please follow conventions. Please follow these same things that I'm doing so that my code, your code remains the same. I'm going to call it as employees. Employees controller. That's the convention that you would be using. If your model is singular, your controller name would be plural followed by the word controller. Right? And when you add the employees controller now, you'll find that it has generated some default methods for you, default code for you. Just take half a minute to read through the code that it has generated, so you know what I'm talking about.
Create, update, delete.
Yeah. So basically, it has got a index, a details, and an insert, update, and delete, which is in the form of create, edit, and delete. The names that it's using are create, edit, but create, of course, is for your inserting records, edit is for your update, and delete is delete. So these are the basic operations that are generated for you. All right. Okay. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to also generate the scaffolding for the views. All right. We're going to generate, I'm repeating what I'm saying. We're going to generate the scaffolding for the views based on the model that we are using. What does scaffolding mean? Word scaffolding here means
Scaffolding is like a ladder which we are used to.
Here. I'm not talking about in construction, that ladder that you use. I'm asking you here, what does scaffolding mean?
Supporting code.
Code that's generated by someone. Okay. So some dummy code that it generates and gives you a structure to your code. Are we clear on this, everybody? So here, whenever you hear the word scaffolding, it simply means that code that Visual Studio is generating for you. So we're going to generate some code and then see what code it's using. Now, so far, whatever we were using in the view did not use any models. But in this view that we will be generating, the view will be using a model to display the data. And such views that use a model to display the data are called as strongly typed views. So what is a strongly typed view? A view which is
Using a model to display data.
correct, which receives a model and then display the data from there. Okay, so let's do this step together. Everybody's finished generating the code and all that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's start with index. Right click on index and choose add view. Please do this with me. Do not fall behind. Right click on index and choose add view. And instead of creating an empty razor view, we'll go in for a razor view, the second option there. And choose add. Right? So first thing is the view name. What should be the view name? Always ideally should match with what? The method name. So view name, I'm keeping it as index. I'm not changing that. The template that we'll use, by default, it shows you empty template. So the empty template is not using any model. It's not a strongly typed view. But the other templates that I use are all going to be using a strongly typed view. So which of these templates would be ideal for index? Now, process of elimination, okay? So there's a create. Create, any guesses what will be available for? What will it be used for? Create for?
Adding
We've
Insertion.
got a method. See, we've got methods. What are our methods called? Index, details, create, what else? Edit and delete. These are the 5 methods that we had in the generated code. So create model, create template will be used for create template. This one will be
Insertion.
used for which method?
Line number 21.
What is the name of the method?
Create.
Create. So create for create. Edit for
Edit.
edit. Delete for
Delete.
delete. Details for
Details.
details. So what is the only one left for index now?
Empty or list.
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 So typically the index is used to show all the records, to show all the employee details. So here, for example, we're going to be linking it to the model employee. So to display all the employees, we'll be using this. So use the list template. Next option, it asks you for which model class you want to use. So which model class are we using in this example?
Employee.
Employee.
Employee. Right? Employee. Now, this is what I was saying. If you have not compiled your code, then this name will not be shown out here. So you need to have compiled your code on after you added the employee before you came in here. So you picked up employee. I'm not changing any of the other options. And let's start with add. So now there's again scaffolding happening. Okay, it has created some scaffolding.
It is also installing some NuGet packages.
Yeah. Let it go ahead. No problem. The NuGet package is doing the scaffolding for you. So first it installs a NuGet package and then it does the scaffold. All right. So it has generated some code for you. Now I'm going to go ahead and generate the other code. You all can do it at your own pace. So look at what I'm doing out here. Can I have your attention, please, everybody? It may not have finished on your screen. So look at my screen. I'm going to go back. I've finished doing it for index. I'm going to ask you to do it for all the other methods. So let me do this with you for one of them. For details, help me. What should I do for details again? Tell me the steps.
Right click add.
Right click and add a view. Pick up a razor view, the second option. View name details. Template name
Details.
details. Model
requirement
class is
Employee.
employee and add. And this you have to repeat for the other methods as well. For other methods as well. Now create is coming in twice. Edit is coming in twice. Delete is coming in twice. But you have to add it only once. You don't have to add it twice. So what I'm trying to say is here, see, there are two methods here. Create here also, create here also. Any of the two methods, any of the two methods. Right click, add view, raise a view, pick it up for create,
create
for employee,
employee model
and OK.
class.
So repeat this for all the views. I'm giving you 2 minutes. I'm also doing it. You also do it. Can you please put in a done in the chat window once you're done so I get an indication? Only Nikhil has put in the message. Only Nikhil is done or others done too? Put in messages so I know what is happening. How quick, slow you all are going. All right. So I'm going to ask you all to continue with looking at what I've done and then you can catch up later. If you've done even one scaffolding, it is good enough. Even if you've done one, then that's good enough. And then others you can catch up later. So everybody please look at what I'm doing next and then you can catch up with your other code. So first thing you'll find that it has created all these different views, right? All these different views have been created. 5 different views that we have with some default code given out there. Okay. Now, what do I have to do or what do we have to do out here? Basically, the controller needs to now create an object of the employee class and pass it to these different views. and the views have already generated code to show these employee objects. So let's look at these one by one. Can we go into the details first? If you'll have done details, have you all done details? I'm presuming you're all done details. Anyone who's not done details? All right. So go into details first and see what is the first line on top. What does the first line on top tell you?
The model view is using is employee.
Yes. So this is an example of a strongly typed view. The first line generally tells you which model is it getting details from, is it displaying details from. So the model that we're using here is the employee class. Now, what is this model binding.employees? That is basically the name of the namespace that it's using. Okay. So basically, it has generated code based on this employee class. This is what we have done out here. Now, if you couldn't come down to the line number 14. Line number 14. This is an example of an HTML helper. Earlier in the day, we saw tag helper. What does the tag helper do? ASP hyphen. What does the tag helper do for you? Yes. Do you remember the tag helper or no?
Converts ASP tag into HTML tags.
Correct. Converts, you had an ASP hyphen controller, ASP hyphen other tags out there. So those tags are converted into equivalent HTML code. Now here in this case, you have a HTML helper, which is generating the entire HTML for you. Now in this case, HTML.display name for and display for. So you'll have other controls also. Let me show you what I mean by that. Like you have a HTML.text box for, all right? Or a HTML dot, let's say, radio button for, or a HTML dot checkbox for. So these would be different types of controls that are being created for you. Now I'll show you what happens in the display name for, how it actually comes out. But there are two things that you are displaying here: display name for and display for. Now, what is the difference between display name for and display for? Both of these take what as a parameter? See what it takes the parameter display name for. It takes what? Func of employee comma t result. Take an employee the parameter and return t result. T result could be anything. T result could be anything. So what is it receiving as a parameter here? How did it know it is taking an employee? Where is this employee coming in from? Where is this coming in from? This is coming in from where?
Model.
From the model runner. So, for example, I'm just saying, let's say instead of models.employee, let's say I take an error view model. Now here, what does it say? Display name for, and it changes to what? Error view model comma t result. So based on which model you have selected out here, this model here is that type. Now, is the word model any keyword or anything? No, it's not. It says take X as a parameter and return what? X dot employee number. So if you look at X is of type employee, therefore X dot will give you all the properties from there. Are we clear on this? That word model has no special significance. Now, there are two things that is displaying for employee number. There are two things here. Do you see this? There are two things here. So what are the two things here? This says, listen to me carefully. This says display the name of the property employee number. Display the name of the property employee number. So what is the name of the property employee number? What is the property employee number called?
Employee number.
Employee number. So this is like directly putting in what? ENPNO. Like directly typing out ENPNO. But instead of hard coding it to employee number, what is it saying? Display name for employee number. the property employee number, whatever the name of the property employee number. Now, why are they doing this? Because later we will see something called as data annotations. And in the data annotation, they will tell you that instead of displaying EMP number, you can also display employee, EMPLOYEE space NUMBER. How to give a more descriptive name. So whatever you're giving the data annotation now, it will then pick that up. So it will then now pick it up as employee number for it. Okay, but that's for a little later. Right now, it is only going to show you what is the output here is going to show you directly employee number. The second thing is display for. Now this is display the value in the property employee number. So if this was showing you EMP number, this was showing you employee number, and let's say the value in there was 1, this should now show you 2 as what? Employee number, comma, and then 1. Similarly, what would this be? Next one. This will give you return what?
Name.
Name of the property name, which happens to be name. And then the value for the property name, which happens to be, assuming I have passed Vikram here. That's how it will actually take it. And this is being repeated for all of them. Similar things for basic, similar things for department. Are we clear on what it has done?
Yes, sir.
Right? Instead of doing this, could you have done it simply as what? Simply show the employee number. So how do I simply show the employee number? You have a keyword here called model, right? And this keyword, this property model, is your actual model on top. So I could have directly said model dot employee number. I could have directly given this. Instead of doing it in this long about way, I could have directly given this. Right? So the scaffolding code that it generates is some default code that it generates for you. It does not mean that this is the final code. It simply means it has given you some initial code. Now you change it to whatever you want to do. Instead of you writing all this code, it has generated some code. And then you take this code and improve on it, whatever changes that you want to build. Okay, right now I'm not changing anything. I'm keeping it the way it was earlier. So what does it, okay, just going further down, what is it creating here again? What is this? What does this create? HTML.action link. What do you think this will create?
Link.
Ahref again. And they've shown you how to do the same thing with A and then ASP action. So what is this? What is this code using? Line 41, what is it using? Line 40, what is it using?
Line 40 is using HTML helper.
Very good.
And 41 is using ASP tags.
Tag helper.
Tag helper.
Right? Technical name is HTML helper and tag helper. Both are generating the same code for you. Similar code. Are you clear on this, everybody? So why are they doing this? Why are they showing you different ways of doing this? Not to confuse you, but just to show you the different options that are available. See, generally speaking, when you're starting with ASP.NET MVC for the first time, you may not know what code to write. So this scaffolding helps you understand how to generate the code. And once you understand, then you can change what it's generating, or you need not even use the scaffolding. You can write your own code if you want to. Right? But at this stage, when we are learning, scaffolding is very useful. Any questions about this guy? About what we're doing in details? So this is receiving an employee as a parameter and displaying the values. Correct? Understood?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's come back to the controller. Yes.
So can you explain the last line once more?
What is the last line?
So yeah, the HTML link edited new.
This one. 41.
So above it. The
This
line
one.
of
HTML helper.
Same thing, same thing. Same thing. It says first thing is, what is the text that you want to show?
Mhm.
What is the text that you want to show? So text, instead of edit, I'll give in something different. Okay. go to edit page. So this is a text. The second line, second parameter here is what is the action name? So what action name, when you click on this link, which action you want to go to? Which action you want to go to? Edit. This one, what action is it taking you to?
Index.
Index. They're just showing you different ways of doing the same thing. All right. Now
Yes.
there's a third parameter here. There's a third parameter here which I'm not explaining right now. Let me show you the output and then I'm going to ask you what to do in there. But at this point, I'm not explaining you the third parameter. Okay.
Okay, sir.
I've just changed this to go to edit page. So remember this when you're looking at the link below. All right. Now let's go back to the controller. And in the controller, I'm going to now create an object of type employee and pass it to the view. Then once it's passed to the view, what will the view do? What will the view do if I pass it to an object of type employee? That object would be shown out here. Help me do this. Employee, again, I don't have the using on that. So let's add a using on that. Employee obj is equal to new employee. And I'm going to hard code the values here. I'm going to hard code the values here. Starting with obj.employee number is equal to ID. Now, what if I don't pass the ID? It will give you a problem. So in this case, I'm giving a default value of 0. Right? Employee.object, employee number equal to this. Then obj.name equal to Vikram. So I'm hard coding these values. Ideally, where should I be reading this from?
Query string.
No. Okay, but name. Where will name come in from?
Database. That model.
From the database. Which will be, yes, you've gone one step further. So which will be a method that you'll write in the model to return the date. So obj.department number equal to, yes, in this case, I'm hard coding it to 10. And obj.depart, what else is missing? Basic. Right now, it's hard coding this. And then this object that I've created, I'm going to pass it to my view. Right? Okay. I want details to run first. So what do? Go in here and give the default name as details. So when I run this now, my employee currently is having these values. Employee ID will be from the URL. URL, if I'm not passing it, will take it as 0. And then name, department number, and basic. Why is the problem here? What did I make a spelling mistake or something? Oh, controller I didn't change. So controller was employees. Right? Let's try running this. So this is how that details page is looking. Do you see this go to edit page?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
that was the link that I created. That is the hyperlink that I created. And when I'm clicking on this, it's going to take me to edit. Right now, of course, edit page has not written any code, so it'll give an error, but this is how it's looking up. Are we all here? Have you understood what has happened?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now come back to this. Can I have your attention, please? I know you may not have finished writing the code or whatever. Just look at this. Look at the output. So if you look at the view page source, keep looking at the view page source. It'll give you an idea about what's happening. So what is it done now here in this case? What is the display name for has given you what? Display name for?
EMP number.
EMP number. And display for has given you what? The value in there.
Value.
Are we clear on this? Name and Vikram, basic and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, department number and 10. That's how it's actually generated. Other things are, of course, the similar things to have. The href, see how they have actually come out here. So keep an eye on the view source. Keep looking at the view source. So you will understand what is happening out there. Your view source is your best friend here while learning. Questions if any? Questions if any?
Sir, here you have passed the value in the controller. How
Yeah.
can you pass it in the model and here it
I
will
will do
receive?
that we have to do. Right now I'm just getting to understand how the the scaffolding is working. Then what are we going to do here? Instead of hard coding the value here, what will this be? There'll be some method in the model that returns me an employee based on the ID.
Yes, sir.
Have you all written that method or not yesterday? Get single employee. Have you not written that method already?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, we
have
have.
done.
Yes, I had given you a half. I had completed half of it. I had completed, and I said that you can complete it. So now you'll have to write all those methods in your model class, which return to you the data. So we'll do that. We'll do that shortly. But we'll first let's understand this, how this is working. The model part of it should be easy if you work with database. All right. Let's look at index. Turn our attention to index. And you can do this, right click and go to view. So what are the index view taking as a model? First thing. Index view, what is it taking in the model?
IEnumerable of employee.
IEnumerable of employee. That means it's going to receive a collection of employees. So it's not just one employee. Now we have to do what? Multiple employees have to be shown. Are we clear on this? So see what they're doing out here. Tell me what they're displaying here at the top of table. What is the first thing that they're doing? What is this now? PH is what?
Header.
The heading. And what are they displaying now? Display name for. What is display name for going to give you?
Name of the properties of employee.
Name of the property. So it's just going to be like the heading, employee number, name, basic, department number. That is what they're doing. And after displaying the heading, come down to line number 31. What are they doing on line number 31 now?
For each loop, we are iterating.
For each loop. So this, whatever model you have received, what is the keyword here for that model is capital M. We saw that in the previous example, capital M model. So if model now, okay, now this question I don't like it all. So many times I'm asking, I have to ask the same question. If model is an IEnumerable of employee, what is where item?
Employee.
Employee. So now what are they doing? They're saying display name for, display for rather, not display name for. Take X as a parameter and return what? Item dot employee number.
Employee number.
I don't know why they're doing this. Why not just directly give what? Item dot employee number here, right? At the rate item dot employee number. Can I not directly give this? Yes or no?
Yes, sir,
Display
we
what?
can.
Yes, sir, you can.
Directly. So I really don't know why they're doing this. You don't need it here. You don't need a display for out here. You can directly do the item dot employee number, the item dot name. So you can change it also if you want to. Are you getting what I'm saying? So don't think that the scaffolding is the best code that they will generate. You will write better code than that. So I'm just doing it for one. I'm not doing it for all. I'm doing it for one. But I'm just trying to show you that this is what has been shown out here. Clear on this, everybody? So it's just displaying to you all the employee number, name, basic, and department. Are they even using this model item
No,
on the
sir.
right hand side? No.
No.
They're not using anything out there. They're directly saying item dot name. So what is the big deal? You could have directly printed these values.
But sir, using this option, we can directly get a ready-made page. We don't need to make any changes, right?
That is the only thing. It teaches us how to be lazy. Right? So yeah, this can be a start point and then you can make whatever changes that you want to. I don't like this. I mean, this is ridiculous. What are they doing? Display name for take a model item, but no, we don't want to show the model item. We'll show directly item dot name. So display the item dot name directly. Okay. Anyway, what are they doing here on line 46, 47, 48? What are they doing here?
They are
Giving
creating HRF
anchors
links,
using HTML helper.
links for edit, details, and
delete.
Delete.
page. Right? So essentially, and that's where your for each loop ends. Right? That's your for each loop ending out here. Clear on this, everybody?
Yes, sir.
All right. So let's go and pass. What do we need to pass it? What do we need to pass it? Collection of employees.
Employee.
I enumerable of employees. So I'm going to take up a list of employees. So list of employee LSTMs, right, equal to new list of employee, and LSTMs dot add. I'm hard coding the values. Ideally, you should be doing what? Ideally doing what?
You must take it from the database.
Correct. So call a method on the model which returns the values from the database. So new employee, I'm hard coding these values. Employee number equal to 1, name equal to Vikram, right? Basic equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and lastly, department number equal to 10. Let's add a few dummy records. Right, add 2, 3 at least so that you can see the output. Otherwise, you will not know what is happening in the output. Don't add only one. Right, some sample data, any sample data. And what do I do now? Line 18. What is the change now? Like earlier, what would we do to line 18?
Return LSTMPs.
Yeah, so pass that LSTMPs to the view. So this is important. That object needs to be passed to the view. Otherwise, what's the point? You create all the object and of no use. Okay. Now, I'll go back to my program and my default page. My starting page, I'm going to keep it index. I'm not going to change that index. So when I run this now, I should get a list of all employees shown after one after the other from the index. Along with that, you also have what? Links for edit, delete, and
Details.
Also, there's a link for create new. Do you see that link for create new?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what will that take you to? That will take you to create. And then you can go on to edit details and whatnot. Can I click on details for any of them and, see the details for this?
Yes, sir.
But right now, my details page, I have hard coded the value. So even if I click on Harsh's record or Shweta's record, it's still going to show me Vikram on that page.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm hard coding the values. But yes, the details should take you to details and show you the values there. Right? It's showing you these values. And back to list from here will take you where?
Again,
To the
to
index.
index
So at
page.
least these two links are currently maybe not fully functional, but at least it takes you to that page. It's not, I still have to do something else on that. Give you 2 minutes to try this out. Whatever you want to try out this. But we're going to go on to the other pages as well. Any questions about this?
Sir, can you re-show the index page, how you link this object there? The index
Where?
page.
Which object?
That
This.
object LST, we send that the data over here, the list.
So this is come into it automatically. I have not done anything.
Okay.
The only thing I needed to do was return view of LSTMs. This LSTMs will automatically be passed to what? To your model.
Okay.
So I haven't done anything. This is generated code.
Okay.
I have done it in the controller. In the controller, what have I done? Even in details, what have I done? I've passed that employee object there. In here, I've passed the employee collection there. This I have done. Employees, controller code I have written. All right. Can I have your attention, please, everybody? Can I have your attention, please, everybody? Now, when I run this, what I want to do here is, see this. If I click on employee number 1 for details, right now it just takes me to details, but it does not pass me that /1. It does not pass me that /1. If I click on 2, again, it's not passing me what? Details /2. It's not doing that. But I want to do that. Are you getting what I'm trying to say out here, everybody? So these links are not currently functional. So let's go into the index page and see what they're generating out here for you. So here, this is the one for details. So which one, what are we doing out here? See, there are a lot of overloads to this. Let me take you to another overload. So first thing is link text. Link text is what? What is link text? Yes.
What
Link
we will
text
be
is what?
displaying.
What do you want to show there? Second parameter is action name. So action name, what is it taking it as? Action name is details. So when I click on that, it will take me to this action. Third is controller name. Now they are using this overload. They are using this overload where they're not passing the controller name. So controller name will take up what by default? Whichever controller I am in right now. I'm for index, whichever controller I am in, it'll take the same controller name. But if I want to go to a different controller name, then I can do what? I can give the different controller name. So I can also give the action name and controller name, but they're not using that here. And the last option there is T model root values. Now, what can go into the root? Basically, these are the values that are going into the root. If you look at your program.cs, have I closed that? So this is the name of your root variable. What is the variable that they have out here? Yes. ID. Could I have passed another variable also here if I defined it? Could I have passed also X?
Yes, sir. You can.
So do they know what variables we are using? Do they know what variables we are using?
No, sir.
No. So if you come back to the index page, what they are saying is whatever variables you want to use, you could create an anonymous class and pass the values out there. So what are they saying? If they're saying, for example, if you want to pass ID, you could say ID equal to item dot. What is the primary key of item is what now here? Who's your item? Who's your item here? Item is what? Employee. So item dot will give you what? All properties of this. So I can pass the item dot employee number. Supposing I had an X also, I could have said what, comma, X is equal to whatever else that you need to pass. Let's say item dot department number. And where will this go now? Where will this go? This will go into your root data. Now, why are they keeping an anonymous type? Because they don't know what properties you are using. So whatever your root data are, whatever your root data variables are, sorry, where is that program.cs? Whatever your root data variables are, here we got only one. Suppose you got 5 variables. You can pass all 5 values there if you want. Are we clear on this, everybody?
Yes, sir.
So this is what we're doing out there. So I don't need to pass other things. I'm only passing what? I'm only passing
Employee number, ID.
ID. And same thing I'm going to do for the other pages also. Here also what? I want to pass ID. And item dot, what would be the ID now?
Employee number.
So now by doing this, see the difference now in my code? See what happens now? If I click on the 4th one, the ID is being passed as 4. Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir.
Now, similarly on the details page, here also go to edit page. It's taking me to the edit page, but it's not passing me the ID. It should have passed me what? It should have passed me 4. So how do I do that? Again, on the details page, you have something similar. It says what? Go to the edit page and pass it the ID. ID, what will be the primary key out here? Model
Employee
dot
number.
employee.
Model dot employee number.
Sorry, not department number dot employee. They don't know what your primary key is, which is why they were leaving it for you to fill in there. So these links now you have to pass, and you can see how you can pass these values out. Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, so these have got the links working. Also on the top, there's a link to what? Where is this taking you to?
Create new page. Create
Create
page.
new. So let's focus on create new. So when I go to index,
So from the index page, when you are going to the details and passing that employee number in the URL, it is not showing the
because I've hard
data of
coded,
the,
no?
yeah,
I've hard coded
that's
the
right.
other values.
Yes. So still it is not fetching any data. Okay, okay.
It is these are the hard code. This value it is checking. This is coming correctly. Employee number is coming from the URL, but these other values are hard coded.
Yes.
So
yes,
what would you be doing? You'll be writing code which says that now read the employee number 3 from the database and return to me that record. That you have to do.
Understood, sir. Understood. Thank you.
Okay. So let's look at create new. Now create new works at 2 levels. So see what happens. When you first go to create new, these values are shown blank. These values are shown blank. Then what is create new? Create new is actually like your insert or your register page or whatever. It's inserting a value. So the user would now put in an employee number, put in a name, put in a basic, put in a department number, and click on create. Now there are 2 requests going out here. The first one was when you go to create. At this time, it is doing a get on the create page. And then later, you'd fill in all the details and click on create. This actually is a submit button. This here is a submit button. So what is it doing here in this case?
Post request.
Post
It's
on
doing
form
a-
action.
So there are 2 things happening here. There are 2 creates happening here. One is what should you do when it is a get? And the second one is what should you do when there is a post? Are you clear on the difference between the 2? Everybody?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So come down to your controller and you'll find that there are 2 things out here. Now, can you look at it and tell me which of the creates is like create on line 32 and a create on line 40? Which of the 2 creates is for get and which of the 2 creates is for post?
32 is for get and 40 is for post.
How did you know 40 is for post?
So there is written HTTP post.
Where does it say it's for post? Which line number?
38.
38. So 38 tells you that this is going to happen in case of a post. This create will be called for your post. Now this one doesn't tell you anything. This one doesn't tell you anything. By default, what does it take?
Get.
A get. If you want, you can give it HTTP get. If you want to be more clear, you could give in your HTTP get. But even if you don't give a HTTP get, by default, it's taking what? A get. See all of these. There's a get happening. So the default request is a get. But if you want a post, you have to mark it as a post. So now let's focus on create. Let's focus on create and let's go to the view and see what it's generating. Let's go to the view and see what it's generating. So firstly, again, what is it taking? Here, what does it take again in the parameter on the top? Model is employee. All right. Look at line number 13. What is it created here?
ASP
Line
tag.
number 13 is a form. and somewhere at the end, line number 38, that's where your form is ending. In between the form/form, what are the things that it's looking at? So ignore anything that says validation. Okay, ignore that. I'll talk about that later. When we're doing data annotations, I'll talk about it. So right now, ignore that validation. Now they have generated code in a different way out here. So what are they using out here? They're not using a HTML helper. They're not using that. They're using a tag helper. So what are they doing? Can you tell me line number 16, what is doing? Line number 17, what it's doing?
So 16 is creating a label and 17 is accepting an input.
Correct. So it's showing you label is just that, display employee number, and line number 17 is actually your input type equal to text. So employee number and then actual employee number. Then next one again, 21, 22 again, similar. Yes. Display
Yes,
name,
sir.
accept name. Display basic, accept basic. And you're doing it for all the controls. And at the end of it, on line number 36, you have an input type equal to submit. So what will happen when you click on submit now? Whatever is the data between form/form, all of this will be submitted to where? Which action is the form taking?
Create.
Create. So form, it takes it method equal to post by default and action equal to create. That's what it's doing. All right. Okay. Now let's run this. When I run this and I go to create for the first time, when I go to the get for the first time, what values should it show me here? Should it show me any values here initially?
Oh, so
Initially, this is like a register page. So initially the values are shown blank. Is this correct, or do I need to make any additions to this?
Employee number auto generated.
But not here, no? Not
There
here.
will
If
be
at all you want to
no
do that,
initial
then remove the
values.
employee number and at the database level generate it and show it to him. Then don't accept it from him. Here we're not doing that. Are we doing that?
No, sir.
Here in this form, we are doing what? We are saying accept the values. So my question is, if you're going to accepting the values, do you need to make any changes in the get part of the code?
No.
Are there any changes
No.
required in the get?
No.
Or is it functional as of now? Is it doing what it's supposed to do in the get?
Yes, sir.
It's doing what it's doing. Now, what is he expected to do? He is expected to enter whatever employee number, enter the details, and what will he do next? He will click on create. Now, when he clicks on create, what's going to fire off here would be this create. Would be this create. And when he does a get, what fires off here would be this create. So the get create, I don't need to do anything. It's just returning a view, a blank view with no values in there, and that's perfectly okay. But now the values that he's entered are going to be submitted to me in this iForm collection. Whatever values. What is this iForm collection? Can you make out from there? Form collection. Are we clear on this? So what is this form collection? It's basically the values that you're going to send between form/form. And let's see how this happens. So initially, when I click on create new, right? Where is it calling this? It's calling the get, and it simply returns the view without needing to do anything. Now I'll enter the values. Let's say employee number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Name, whatever, Vikram 1, 2, 3. Basic, all ones. Department number 10. And create. Now I need to read these values in the server code. So this iForm collection is showing you all these values. It's showing you all the values. Now, what are the keys that it's showing you? You see this? You see this? Employee number, name, basic, department number. And I wonder what that last one is. I have I don't know what that last one could be. I really don't know what it could be, but it's showing you something called as request verification token. I wonder where that came from, but we'll worry about that later. Okay. So these are the values that you're getting in iForm collection. Let's quickly look at the details out here. So view page source. And you have a form / form with slash going here / form here. Okay. Now between form / form, what is it generated? So you'll notice that this is your label and displaying what? Employee number. This was your input, type equal to number, ID equal to employee number, and name equal to employee number. So what is it generated now? Whatever your properties were there, whatever properties that you had, it is generating controls having the same name and the same ID. What is the difference between ID and name? Where do you use ID? Where do you use name?
So name can
ID.
be repeated and ID is only unique.
No, but Dion, that doesn't answer my question. My question is, where do you use name and where do you use ID?
Name is for model class.
When you write a HTML control, you can give an ID also, you can give a name also. Why do you need to give the ID? Why do you need to give the name?
So for ID to select that particular tag.
So where do you use ID?
CSS.
In JavaScript validation, we use name.
Yes. No.
Sorry, ID.
ID is
You
used for
started
validation.
so well. I was like, okay, good. And then you give me a heart attack. Barabbar ulta bola. So in JavaScript validation, client-side script, you need the ID. Get element by ID.
Yes, yes.
Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And where do you need the name?
To
Where do you use
send the
the name?
data.
Database.
Post data.
Database.
Query string.
Connect database.
The name is required in server-side code. In HTML, why do you give a controller name and why do you give it as ID? The ID, that part is correct. It needs to be unique. Name can be repeated, but that is not an answer to my question. The ID is used by client-side script and the name is used by server-side script. What if I don't give a name? What will happen if I don't give a name?
So it won't recognize that value.
No, it will not submit the value. The value will not be submitted to the server if you don't have a name in HTML. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So what will it submit? See, you've got a form / form here. You've got a form / form here. So what is it going to submit? It is only going to submit controls that have a name. Why didn't it submit the submit button? Why didn't it submit the submit button? There it was only having 5 values. What are the 5 values? The 4 controls plus this request verification token. Why did it have request verification token in the server-side code? Because it has a name. Why didn't it take this input type in my server-side code?
Because there's no name.
Because there is no name. So what is crucial in server-side code is the
Name.
Name of that control. And what is this ID used for?
Validation.
Client-side script. These are basics. These are things that you should know. Why give it a name and why give it an ID is the first thing you should know in HTML. So now, what has this done for me? When you said @ sorry, we didn't use a @ out here. You use the tag helper in this case. So what has the tag helper done for me? It has generated a control having the same name as the property. And the value is blank. It's not because it didn't have initial value out. Similarly, it has repeated this for everything else. So input type equal to text, ID equal to name, name equal to name. Similarly, input type equal to text, ID equal to basic and name equal to basic. And lastly, input again, type equal to number, ID equal to department number and name equal to department. So it has given you these values in this manner. So it has generated this code for you. Now, at the server side, we saw that this iForm collection. Now do you understand what is the iForm collection? Whatever values you have between form/form are going to be available to you as iForm collection. So one way of reading the values is I could do this string, let's say name is equal to collection of name. What is this collection of name? What is this name here now? What is this now?
The name which was submitted in the form.
Correct. The name of the control. The name of the control. What was the name given to the control? It was same as the property names. Yes or no? I just showed you all the 4 names that it generated for you. And you can read it now this way. This is one way of reading. So this way you can read any control which is between form/form. You can read this value. But what is the prerequisite? That they need to have a name. That control needs to have a name. If the control doesn't have a name, it will not be submitted. As simple as that. This is not new in ASP.NET. This is HTML basics. So I could read values here like this. And then of course I can convert it from employee number from a string to an integer, basic to a decimal. I can do that. I can convert it. So I can read values in this manner. 1. Okay. Let's quickly run this and show you the values that I'm reading. So go to create, F5. Right, remember the values that I'm entering here, okay? And create. When I click on create here, it's come in here. And let me just skip to the next breakpoint. So if you look at name, now what is name picked up? Vikram, or employee number has picked up whatever 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or basic has picked up this value, or department number has picked up this value. Now, where has it picked it up from? From the collection of so-and-so. So this is one way of picking it up. Are we clear on this, everybody?
Yes, sir.
Now, what can I pick up with this? Anything that has been submitted between form/form. Anything. But we are not going to do it this way. So we're not going to do it this way. Instead, what are we going to do? Instead, what are we going to do out here is this. So I will comment out this code for you to see what we could have done. But what we are going to do here instead is I will receive an object of type employee. Right? Employee OBJ. I will receive an object of type employee. I don't need to do this. I don't need to do this. Can I delete this code? I don't need this code at all. Okay. I don't need this. All right. Now, what are the properties in employee? What are the properties in employee?
Employee number, name, basic, and department number.
Right? But I also have form controls, input type equal to name, basic, department number, and what. So those form variables, what form am I talking about? Form/form, which have a name out there. I have those which match my property values. Agree? Right?
Yes, sir.
ASP.NET says, ASP.NET MVC now says, now you relax. Now let me take over. And I will use model binding now. Not just binding, but I will use model binding. And I will directly give you these values into your object. I will directly give you the values into the object. Only thing you have to ensure is what? Only thing you have to ensure is what?
Name attribute and properties of the employee will be same.
Correct. Only thing that you have to ensure is that the name of that control, of the HTML control, the name of the HTML control and the property name needs to be the same. If that is the same, model binding will do your job for you. So automatically it will pick it up. Are you clear on what is happening? So I am not doing anything. I am not doing anything. Did I even give the same name? Even I didn't even do that. Who did that for me? The generated code, the scaffolded code gave me that for me. And it ensured that the name that it generated was matching the name of the property. And that helps me now, instead of picking it up from iFrom collection, instead of doing it in this way, which is not a very good way of doing it, I can directly get it into my employee object. Right? So let's try running this now. Create new. Run this. Employee number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember the names that I'm giving. Okay. Remember the values that I'm giving. And create. So iFrom collection also has the values. iFrom collection also has the value. If you want, you can pick it up from here. No problem. You can pick up from here whatever the value is. But more important for me, I also have the values now in OBJ. Are we clear on this, everybody? So this is the ease of using it now, here with the help of model binding. Questions, if any? Clear? Yes, no, some response would be appreciated.
So how is it getting in the object of this employee?
Magic. Magic. Also called model binding. What did it say? That the name of the property and the name of the control, if they're the same, I will do that for you.
Okay. So that is also the scaffolding part.
Not with the scaffolding. This is model binding. You remember binding that we did
Yes,
earlier?
yes, sir.
Binding did what? Binding said that if you have a variable that matches the name of your root data or of your query string or of your form, we had not used the form then. But even if it was something that was there in the form, and if your variable name has the same name, I will give you the value. That is what binding did.
Yes, sir.
Now we are going one step forward. We are saying model binding says that if your property name and that name matches, you got it.
Okay, sir.
Now it need not be with form data. It could also be with root data, or it could also be with query string data. Three possibilities. What are the three possibilities?
Form data, query
data,
string, and root data.
Root data and query string.
Query string.
Names, you make sure that they are the same. Everything else, leave it to us. Are you clear on this?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, can we remove that collection in that case?
Which one? First one.
Like, first one.
Please. Please. I commented it out. I said, I don't want to use that. I'm just showing it to you that, okay, both are available here. What else would I also work? Supposing I wanted employee number, what else could I also done? I could have also done what? Int employee number. Will it come into int employee number here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
What is it using here? Here, what will it use? What concept will it use here? Binding.
Binding.
Binding. And here, what concept is it using?
Model binding.
Model binding. So binding would be with variables. Model binding would be with your model. Model, of course, is your class. So you can use it in any way, either of the ways. But this, of course, is the easiest way. Here, supposing I had 20 properties, what will I need to do? Supposing I had 20 properties in employee, then what will I need to do?
20 times you'll have to write the parameter.
20 variables I'll have to create. Are we getting this? So the best option, is to use what? Model binding.
Model binding.
His question was, can I remove collection? Yes, of course you can remove it. But this will give you only the properties that are, Only the properties that are the same names. What if you have other controls on that form, which are not mapping to any object or anything? What if you have other controls there, and if you want to find out the values of the controls, then you have to use this. Or give the variable name the same as the control name. Magic is what you give me the same name, everything else it does. Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. So now if I give you the employee object, do you know how to write code for that? Whatever you have to do out here, create has to do what? Has to call code in the database. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. So this, I'm not writing any code. I'm just showing you how you have got that employee object. Okay. What needs to be done? What needs to be done? OBJ to be inserted into database. Did you have a method the other day which took an OBJ as a parameter and insert into the database? Employee object.
Yes, sir.
You wrote that, no?
Yes.
So you already know what to do. You already know if I give you the employee object, you can write the other code. You can copy paste that other code.
Yes.
All right. So I know I'm past my time, but I'm going to take 5 minutes more to complete this example. The next thing I want to do is edit. Now in edit, if you go to the view, tell me whether you have seen this before. I'm showing you edit. Tell me whether you have seen this before.
It is the same as create form.
Identical to create. Identical to create, except for somebody who's wanting to find. No. Here line 4, it doesn't say edit there. It says create there. But otherwise, it's identical code. So here, what do they want to do? When you run this, right? If you go to edit, supposing I go to edit for Vikram. First thing, this should not be blank. This should not be blank. This should show you the values. Which values it should show you? Which values should
original values?
The current values that we had for that object. So if I clicked on Vikram, it should have showed me what one, Vikram, whatever the basic, whatever the department number, and the user should be able to make some changes in this and click on save. And those changes should be now saved back in the database. So first thing is, let's get the code for edit get. You know what, when would edit get be called?
When we click on edit.
Right. When you go to edit for the first time, when you clicked on edit for the first time. Now here you're getting the ID. So you would read the value from the database and pass it to that view. Does this code sound similar to something else that you have already done, where you are displaying the record?
Details.
Does it sound similar?
Details.
In details. In details also you did the same thing. In details also you did the same thing. Based on the ID that you receive, pass that object to the view. So I'm going to do the same code in edit get. Assuming you didn't do anything, then it would show you this. I'm going to do the same thing in edit get. So when I run this now, remember I've hard coded the values. I have not said it should take up any value. If you click on anyone, what is the name always going to be?
Vikram.
Vikram.
If I go into edit now, these values are now being shown to you. Then he will make changes to them. He will make whatever changes to them and click on save. So when he clicks on save, you're going to be given the values here in the edit post. Here, what would I need to do again? Here, what would I need to do again?
Employee OBJ.
So like your create. Again, what do I do? Take an employee OBJ.
Employee OBJ.
So this is exactly the same like create. It was the same page as create. And let's try running this. Right? So I go into edit. I go into Vikram. I'll change it to some other name. Let's say Vikram S. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm changing it to, let's say, department number 10. I'm changing it to 20. Not 1. Let me give a different, little better basic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or was it something else?
It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Ah, okay, 99999. Okay, I deserve a raise. And I click on save. So when I click on save, it's come in here. And all the values that you need are available now in this object. Which will do what now? What will you do now?
Call the update method for database.
Yeah, call the update method on the database. Have you done that already? Do you already have an update method which takes an employee's object and passes the values back again?
Yes, sir.
So this is what you need. Finally, delete. So if you go to the view for delete, does this look familiar? Does this view look familiar? Does this view look familiar?
This is like the model page.
It
No,
is like a details page.
It is like the details. It's identical to details. With one extra thing, it's showing you, input type equal to submit. It's a form/form, input type equal to submit. Are you sure you want to delete this? It's going to show you that. But otherwise, it's displaying the values to you. So how do I initially, when I go to the, when I go to the delete page, okay, I want to initially show these values. So how do I show the values? If that code is going to be similar to display, what do I do out here? Same code that I had in details. Same code is also there in where? Where else is it the same? In edit get. And the same code is also there in delete. When I run this now, if I click on delete, it shows me this record with, of course, hard-coded values. And now he's going to click on delete. Now, when he clicks on delete, what do you need to delete the value? from the database, what do you need to do to delete the value?
Employee ID,
Employee object.
employee number.
ID, just the ID. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
ID is coming from the URL. ID is coming from the URL. So the only thing that you need is the ID out here. So I'm putting a breakpoint here and I'll show you the ID that's coming correct. So if I go into delete, what is the ID here in this case? ID is 3. Okay, and I click on delete. ID is coming out here as 3. Where is this ID being picked up from? This is on the root data. Correct or no? This is not from form collection. This is from the root data. And if I'm giving you the ID number 3, then you can do what you want to do. So what will you need to do out here? You'll have to write code to delete from the database. That code has yet to be written down. We'll see that in the next session. What are they doing after deleting it? What is line 116 doing? What is line 116 doing?
Returning to the index page.
Going back to the index page. So instead of saying a return view, they're saying return redirect to action. Right? Return redirect to action. That's what they're doing out here. So this here is, if you see what happens next, you're going back to the index page. Redirect to action is a redirect to action result, right? Which inherits from action result. Are we clear on this?
Yes, sir.
So we got the structure of these pages done with hard-coded values. We have just understood what is happening here. What is remaining to be done is what?
Code for the
Connect with the
database.
database.
From the database. I'm tempted to do this, but you'll have an exam to study for. I would have taken exactly 10-15 minutes more and I could have completed this example. I'm tempted to do that, but I'll stop the session here because I know you are all anxious to practice and study for the exam, and we don't have this in the exam. So, right, but that's what we're going to be doing. I'm just going to give you a sneak peek at this. So, for example, I would have a method here called get all employees, which returns a list of employees. What code would I have in here? Select star from employees, read all values one by one, and do what now? Read from the data reader and
Add in the
add
list.
it to a list. So this is reading all the records. The next one is get single employee. What will I do here? Read from the data reader for what? Select star from employees where employee number equal to @ employee number. So read, and if it is there, set into the object. This is the method that I discussed with you all the other day, which returns an employee. So this is returning a single employee. Then of course, insert employee. You already done the insert employee. Received employee as the parameter and insert into the database. Update employee and delete employee. So these are the methods that you need to add in the employee class to get this function. Right. So just giving you an idea of what's coming up next. But I'm not completing that right now. I'm ending the session. I'm already 15 minutes over schedule almost.
So
I'm going to share this code with you. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no. Regarding tomorrow's exam, I had a few questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I don't mind listening to them, but I may not answer all of them.
No, sir. I just want to know whether it will be just basic CRUD operation that we have done, or other than that, some menu-driven program will be there.
No menu-driven program.
Okay. And sir, one more thing. I think people will scold me for that, but you taught a concept of link as well. Is that going to be a part of exam also?
Most definitely yes.
Okay.
Most definitely could be a part. Most definitely yes, meaning is it included in the portion? Of course, most definitely yes. So people should not be scolding you, people should be thanking you for reminding them that, oh, that also needs to be done.
Fine, sir. Thanks.
All right. So I'm going to upload both these examples